Backwards compatibility for the PlayStation 5 has been fully revealed by Sony, and it's a lot more impressive than we first thought it was going to be. And FIFA 2021 Legacy Edition is coming to the Nintendo Switch, and this might be the worst Nintendo Switch game of all time, and you just love to see it. You love to see it. What's going on, guys? I'm RGT85. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button. But without any further ado, let's talk about what's going on in the world of video games. So one thing we know about the Xbox Series X is that the backwards compatibility on the system is, well, very impressive. We saw the groundwork laid for this with the Xbox One X, where games were being upscaled, additional frame rates were added as well, and it really just made for a better experience of these games. The Xbox Series X, from the hands-on previews that we've seen so far, is really taking that into a whole nother stratosphere, where developers don't even have to do anything to their games. If their games have things like uncapped frame rates, those frame rates will be extended on the Xbox Series X, which is very, very impressive stuff and really foretelling of what the future of the next generation of consoles is really going to bring to the table in terms of technology. Now, on the PlayStation 5 side of things were a bit more quiet. We heard that the top 100 or so games would be available from the PlayStation 4 on the PlayStation 5, but it seems like Sony has changed their stance on that, because yesterday they fully revealed the backwards compatibility for the PlayStation 5, and honestly, it is pretty impressive, and almost as impressive as what we've seen with the Xbox Series X thus far. On the PlayStation 5 digital, you'll be able to play digital versions of your compatible PlayStation 4 games on that console. These will be compatible PlayStation 4 digital games you've already purchased or plan to purchase via the PSN store on the PlayStation 4, the PlayStation 5, the web browser, or the mobile app. Since there is no disc drive, of course, you won't be able to use your disc-based games on the PlayStation 5 digital edition. Now, with the PlayStation 5 that does have the disc drive on it, you'll be able to play digital versions of your compatible PlayStation 4 games you downloaded from the PSN store, and of course, you'll be able to use physical PlayStation 4 game discs. Now, that's all pretty standard stuff, but what about enhancements for these games? Will these games be seeing a boost in potentially resolution or in frames per second? It does appear that this will be the case. Of course, there was that rumor of a boost mode for the PlayStation 5 that was being used for backwards compatibility, and this has now been detailed by Sony themselves. PlayStation 4 titles get even better on the PlayStation 5. Select PlayStation 4 titles will see increased loading speeds on the PS5, and will also leverage Game Boost, offering improved or more stable frame rates. Some titles with unlocked frame rates or dynamic resolution up to 4K may see higher fidelity. Additionally, PlayStation 4 games will take advantage of some of the new PlayStation 5's UX features, but more to come on that later. Now, since this announcement, one of the biggest games of 2020 for the PlayStation 4, Ghost of Tsushima, was announced to be getting a free upgrade to 60 frames per second on the PlayStation 5, which that's a pretty big deal, I feel like. I feel like it's going to make for a much smoother experience of that game. I haven't had a chance to check out that game, even though people say it's absolutely phenomenal. I might pick it up on like a Black Friday sale or something like that and play it on my PlayStation 5 this holiday season, but definitely to see these bigger titles already getting these sort of enhancements, it makes you wonder, could you see some stuff with The Last of Us or other Naughty Dog games that get visual enhancements? That game already looks great, but what about a better frame rate potentially? I think the sky is the limit with this, and I think you're going to see a lot of first-party studios for Sony and first-party games really take advantage of this. Now, of course, one of the other questions was, how are you going to be able to transfer stuff to the PlayStation 5 from the PlayStation 4? You can transfer your digital games, your game data, and game saves from a PS4 console to a PS5 console using a LAN cable or by using Wi-Fi. If you already stored PlayStation 4 games and data in the external USB storage device connected to your PlayStation 4, you can bring them over to the PlayStation 5 with an external USB storage device. And if you are also a PlayStation Plus member, you can sync your PlayStation 4 game saves on a PlayStation 5 through Cloud Save. And I think that last part, the ability to be able to sync your PlayStation 4 saves to your PlayStation 5 via the cloud if you are a PSN member, I think that's definitely a very, very good thing, because, well, it's going to make things a lot easier to just move those saves over instead of having to do something like connecting a LAN cable or using an external, USB drive or something like that in order to get your stuff over there. And Sony has really increased the backwards compatibility of PlayStation 4 games on the PlayStation 5, because there's only a handful of games on the PlayStation 4 that won't work work on the PlayStation 5, and most of these games I feel like nobody's really going to care about. Just Deal With It, Robinson, The Journey, We Sing, Joe's Diner, Shadwin, like most of these games are not a big deal. I will say Shadow Complex Remastered is definitely a shame. That is the biggest game on this list. I really love Shadow Complex Remastered. That was actually the first limited run games game I ever bought for my PlayStation 4. It was one of my favorite Xbox 360 games, and I think the remastered edition was really well done as well. So it is a shame to see that on there, but really all the other games are not a huge deal. You can see the list up here on the screen. I do think it's interesting that it says the list is subject to change and excludes demos, meaning that PT will probably not transfer over from your PlayStation 4 to your PlayStation 5, so you'll want to hold on to your PlayStation 4, of course. Now, there is the fact that PlayStation 1, 2, and 3 games are not fully backwards compatible with the PlayStation 5 as of yet. Of course, that could be added down the road. Something like PlayStation Now will give you the ability to play some of those games, but it's not quite as robust as what we're seeing Xbox do. But I think it's definitely a huge step in the right direction. When we first heard the backwards compatibility for the PlayStation 5 with PlayStation 4 stuff, it definitely sounded like it wasn't a huge priority, but Sony has definitely made a lot better strides to make this a bigger priority, and I think most gamers are going to be happy with this. So let me know in the comment section down below what you think of Sony's stance on backwards compatibility. Are you happy to see that they improved upon it, and what other things do you expect to see Sony add to the backwards compatibility of the PlayStation 5? And finally, EA and the Nintendo Switch have a very strange relationship. We've actually highlighted it quite a bit this past week on the channel, really talking about the Need for Speed Hot Pursuit situation. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit Remastered is of course coming to the Nintendo Switch, the PlayStation 4, and the Xbox One in November, but the Nintendo Switch version of the game comes out a week later for some reason. But the Nintendo Switch version of the game is actually done. We know it's completely done because the game randomly released on the Nintendo Switch eShop for a very limited amount of time, and people were able to download and fully play the game, the complete version of the game. Now, of course, there's the whole fact that EA doesn't bring a lot of their main titles to the Nintendo Switch for whatever reason. Of course, there is the fact that they did get a bit burned on the Wii U, but it seems like EA has never been able to mentally recover from that situation. And looking at the Nintendo Switch versus the Nintendo Wii U, it's obviously apples and oranges. The Nintendo Switch will be one of the best-selling consoles of all time, whereas the Wii U was one of the worst-selling consoles of all time. But it really doesn't make sense for EA's business decisions when it comes to the Nintendo Switch for a lot of things. And one thing we've been seeing recently from EA over the past few years is the Legacy Edition of FIFA. Now, FIFA 18 came out on the Nintendo Switch with a dedicated version of the game for the Nintendo Switch. It was designed with the Nintendo Switch in mind. It was built pretty much from the ground up for the Nintendo Switch, and it was the groundwork for what you would see in subsequent games for the Nintendo Switch. FIFA 19, once again, sort of improved upon what we saw with FIFA 18 on the Switch, but then they decided to do something called Legacy Editions, where, you know what, we're not really going to do anything. We're not going to sort of change things up on this version of the game anymore. We're just going to make a Legacy Edition of this game, meaning that, well, nothing's really going to change. We'll change some rosters and things like that, maybe a menu or two, but beyond that, nothing is going to be different in this. And we first saw this last year with FIFA 20 on the Nintendo Switch, which was a carbon copy-paste job of FIFA 19 on the Switch with a few little different things such as menus and of course players that were on different teams now. But FIFA 21 Legacy Edition is coming out on the Nintendo Switch next week, and we got our first review of it from IGN, and they absolutely ripped this game apart. And you know what? It is good because nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. You don't even get menu changes on FIFA 21 besides the FIFA text saying that this is the 21 version of the game. Everything is exactly the same. Nothing has been added in, and the microtransactions are still within this game. And they're even more prevalent than they've ever been before because you have this whole pack system where you're trying to get different cards to unlock different things within the career mode of the game. EA is selling this game for $50, and IGN gave it a 2 out of 10. They actually really threw some salt at EA and just copy pasted their FIFA 20 review for the Nintendo Switch and put it as their FIFA 21 review. The only thing that they highlighted was the microtransaction portion of it because that's essentially what EA did with this game. I don't understand why EA does things like this. Maybe FIFA 18 and 19 didn't sell all that great on the Nintendo Switch, but is that really reason to just rehash the game and re-release the game with absolutely no improvements done to it? I really think this is going to be one of the worst Nintendo Switch games of 2020 because of the fact fact that yes, it might be a solid game at its core, but they're charging $50 for the exact same game that they released last year on the system. I know people out there say, oh, well, sports games never really change. The rosters are the only really thing that changes. And maybe on the surface level, I could sort of see that being an argument, but fans of sports games know that things do change, either for better or worse. We've seen a lot of changes in games like Madden 21 this year, and of course NBA 2K21 this year, which for the most part have been changes for the worst. But with FIFA 21, nothing has changed on the Nintendo Switch version. So I am glad that this game has gotten its first review, and that's a 2 out of 10. And I hope more people in the industry who are going to be reviewing this game do sort of speak out about this game, because it's really predatory is what it boils down to. You're taking advantage of people who are fans of FIFA 21 or the FIFA series in general and buying it on their Nintendo Switch. Like, just buy FIFA 19 at this point in time. Buy FIFA 20. These games are dirt cheap nowadays. You can find them for a discounted price all the time. Don't waste your money on FIFA 2021, because all that's going to do is give EA more encouragement to do things like this. They need to respect the Nintendo Switch as a viable platform, just like every other company that puts games on the system does, and things like this just shouldn't be stood for in the video game industry. Alright, so that is going to do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to let me know what you think of everything in the comments section down below. Are you a sadistic person and you'll be picking up FIFA 21 Legacy Edition? If so, that's bad, man. That's bad. And PlayStation 5 backwards compatibility. Are you excited for it? Do you think more games will take advantage of the boost mode on the system? And what games would you like to see? Because I know Bloodborne has been a title that many people are hoping will get a 60 frames per second enhancement on the PlayStation 5. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel as well. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Later.